How many arthropods were collected?
Which part B is correct?
97 is correct. That's correct.
A.
It's 97. How 97? Because arthropods include myriapods, they include insects, and they include arachnids. So if you sum them up, the sum would be 97. So option B is correct. Okay, these were the questions for today. Let's move on to our main topic, Kingdom Animalia. I am muting you all so that you can understand first, and in the last 5 to 10 minutes you can ask questions and I'll show you the written work as well, what you have to do. All right. Okay, so Kingdom Animalia. We had already done in our previous class the phylums of Kingdom Animalia. Kingdom Animalia is divided into 9 subphylums, and the two major phylums that we have to study according to the syllabus of CAIEs are phylum Arthropoda and phylum Chordata. Out of these, we had covered phylum Arthropoda in our previous class. Done? Okay. Phylum Arthropoda, if we can just quickly recall, Phylum Arthropoda, it means animals with jointed legs. Umar, no need to take any screenshot, okay? So arthropods are animals with jointed legs. This is the largest phylum in the animal kingdom, and the organisms belonging to phylum Arthropoda are bilaterally symmetrical. Bilaterally symmetrical means if you cut them into half, both the sides would be exactly the same. Then they have jointed appendages, exoskeleton, and segmented body, well differentiated organs and organ systems, open circulatory system, and some of the examples of organisms belonging to phylum Arthropoda are spiders, butterflies, mosquitoes, bees, leeches. I had given you this table to differentiate between the 4 classes of phylum Arthropoda: insects, arachnids, crustaceans, and myriapods. I hope this up till here everything was clear. We are now going to move to phylum Chordata, which is our main topic for today's class. Okay, phylum Chordata. They are belonging to kingdom Animalia, and they include all the vertebrates. Vertebrates means animals which possess a backbone. Some invertebrates are also there. Now let's see. This is a classification flowchart representing phylum Chordata. Now phylum Chordata, it can be divided into 2 divisions, Acrania and Craniata. Craniata are those organisms which have a vertebrae or a vertebral column or a backbone. The further divisions of Craniata are the 5 classes which you have already done in your primary section and which you are going to tell me over here today yourself. The 5 classes are Pisces, which are fishes, then Amphibia, reptiles, birds. Birds are also known as Aves, and the last one to which we all belong, mammals. Now let's move on to the key differences between Acrania and Craniata. So organisms which belong to the subphylum Acrania, they do not have a cranium. Cranium is the skull. In scientific terminology, we call skull as the cranium. So subphylum Acrania, the organisms which belong to subphylum Acrania, they do not have a distinguished head structure or a cranium or a skull. Whereas the organisms which belong to subphylum Craniata, they possess a skull. And inside the skull, the brain is present. And you all know that from one of the parts of the brain, the spinal cord is originating. Can anyone name that part of the brain from which spinal cord originates? Anyone? Mahad, Ayan, Jamal. ईमान, कवल, किसी को याद है वो पार्ट ऑफ द ब्रेन जहाँ से स्पाइनल कॉर्ड ओरिजिनेट होती है? अहमद रजा से सेरिबेलम. सोचें सोचें. Think you are going to answer this because you had studied it in grade 5. Till then, we move on to class Vertebrata. Vertebrates are animals which have a backbone or the spinal column, or we can say just a spine. And the spine, it consists of chains of cylindrical bones which are called vertebrae, and they are joined end to end. एक के बाद एक vertebrae join हो जाती है और वो पूरा vertebral column कहलाता है. The front end of the spinal cord, it is expanded to form a brain, which is enclosed and protected by the skull, or as I said, cranium. Ayan says it's the brain stem from which the spinal cord originates, and Ayan, you are very correct. Thank you. Okay, then how many classes of vertebrates do we have? We have 5 classes of vertebrates. The fish, the amphibia, the reptiles, the aves or birds, and the mammals. Let's start with our first class, that is fish or Pisces. We call them Pisces in scientific terminology. Okay, they are cold-blooded animals. First thing, बचपन से पढ़ते आ रहे cold-blooded, warm-blooded. But now we are in senior 1 and we need to know that cold-blooded and warm-blooded are actually, Mahad is saying, Miss, is craniata and vertebrata the same? Yes. Yes, Mahad. You can call them the same. अच्छा, हम बचपन से पढ़ते आ रहे हैं कि one is warm-blooded, one is cold-blooded. So these are obsolete terms. Now the terms which are used instead of warm and cold-blooded are poikilothermic and homeothermic. Okay, so poikilothermic is a term that is used for cold-blooded animals, and homeothermic is the word that we use for warm-blooded animals. I'll give you the spellings, you will get it in your notes, so don't worry about these spellings over here. So if we talk about fish, anyone who's telling me about fish, क्या already पता है? Raise your hand and I'll unmute you. किसी को भी नहीं पता fish के बारे में. That's really sad. Nobody is raising hand. Good, Ahmed Raza. Okay. Yes, Ahmed. What do you already know about fish or Pisces?
Fish have gills to breathe inside the water. They have fin. They have tail to move ahead.
Okay. And?
That's it.
Okay, yes. Very good, Ahmed. Ayan?
Yes, miss. First of all, fish are cold-blooded. I don't know the word you just said that squawks to cold-blooded.
Poikilothermic. Okay.
Fish are coikilothermic.
Hmm.
Then they obviously live underwater and they reproduce underwater. Most fish live and travel in schools that are groups of fish,
Hmm.
and fish have adaptations like fins and a streamlined body and gills, which help them survive underwater. That is their
Okay.
natural habitat.
All
And
right.
fish sometimes become a prey, while other times they become the predator of other small animals.
Okay, correct. Very good. So that was about fish, which Ayan and Ahmed Raza told us, and that's very correct. Now, what we need to know more about fish. First of all, they are poikilothermic. I just mentioned the terminology over here in your chat box, and you can see the spelling over there. Then many of them, they have a smooth and streamlined shape. And why do they have a streamlined shape? This streamlined shape offers minimal resistance to the water through which they are moving. So basically the streamlined shape helps the fish to move easily in water. Then their bodies, they are covered with overlapping scales, and they have fins also, which play a major role in movement of the fish. Then the breathing. How do they breathe? They breathe by filamentous gills, which are protected by a bony plate, and that bony plate is called operculum. You can see over here in the diagram, the gills are protected by a bony plate called the operculum. How do they reproduce? The reproduction in fish is sexual reproduction, but the fertilization, it takes place externally. How? The female lays eggs and the male, it sheds sperms on them after they have been laid. So that is how the fertilization process occurs in Pisces or fish. It's external. That was what we need to know about fish. Next class is, let's see, what's the next class? It's amphibia or amphibians. Again, Irha, would you like to share something about amphibians? Yes, Irha.
Born from eggs.
Okay.
They breathe through gills.
Hmm.
Means when they grow up, they can live on land as well as water.
Very
They
good.
are cold.
They're cold-blooded. And what term do we use for cold-blooded?
Wait, ma'am.
Poikilothermic.
And ma'am,
Hmm.
with tail, only vertebrates. These are the only vertebrates that are born with tail and live in water.
All right. Thank you very much. Anyone else who wants to add anything to what Irha just told us? You are most welcome to raise your hands. Jamal, would you say something? I'll unmute you and I would like you to say something. Yes, Jamal. Jamal, please unmute and tell us about amphibians. Okay, Marjan. Yes, Marjan.
Ma'am,
Yes.
amphibians are small vertebrates that live on water or a moist place to survive.
All right.
And some examples are frogs, toads, or salamanders.
All right.
All can breathe.
Okay.
All can breathe and absorb water through their skin.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, now amphibia. If we talk about class amphibians, again, they are poikilothermic animals. And again, I'm repeating, poikilothermic means cold-blooded. These are the vertebrates which have 4 limbs and they have no scales on their body. Like fish, the class Pisces, they had scales on their body. Amphibians have a smooth, slippery skin with no scales on their body. What do they include? They include the frogs, the toads, and as Marjan said, the salamanders and newts. Now this name amphibia, what does this name mean? It means double life. And it refers to the fact that the organism spends part of its life in water and part of its life on land. Okay, so this was how amphibia are surviving. Then if we talk about frogs, they migrate to the ponds if we talk about the reproduction cycle. What happens? They are laying eggs and the male frog, it migrates towards the pond to shed the to fertilize the eggs which are laid by the female frog. That is how fertilization is happening in amphibia. Okay, here's a picture. You can see a frog, the pairing of frogs. The male clings to the female's back and releases sperms as she lays the eggs. This is the process of fertilization in amphibia. That is how they reproduce. Then we have the next class, reptiles. Who's going to tell me about reptiles? Abdullah Amir. I hope Abdullah is awake. Yes, Abdullah Amir. What do you know about reptiles? Yes, I know it's a disgusting picture, but you have to bear with it. Abdullah is not here. Ammar Khan, would you like to say something about reptiles? I told you all to study beforehand and you have so much knowledge already, but I don't know, are you people tired or you people are sleeping? Please taking part. Yes, Kamal, finally. Please.
Miss, reptiles are the cold-blooded vertebrates,
Hmm.
which means that they cannot control their own body temperature.
Hmm.
And Miss, they are four-legged, I mean two pairs of legs,
Okay.
and they
Limbs,
produce
you
eggs.
call them limbs, okay? Four
They,
limbs.
pro- they produce eggs as
Okay.
when they reproduce, and they have scales on their bodies.
Okay, very good, Kamal. Ahmed Raza has to say something. Let's see what Ahmed is saying. Yes, Ahmed.
And they are cold-blooded.
Okay.
Some have limbs and some doesn't have. Um, they have a tongue, tongue. They have cut. The tongue is cut between. They have a dry, scaly skin, um, and they are cold-blooded.
Hmm. That's correct. Okay, so let me tell you about reptiles. First of all, they are land living vertebrates. If we talk about their skins, they are dry, and the outer layer of the epidermis, it has scales on the skin. So we say that reptiles, if we talk about the differences between amphibia and reptiles, the skin of amphibians is smooth, and the reptiles, they have scales or pattern of scales on their bodies. So they have dry, scaly skin. Also, the eggs of most species, they have a tough shell. So their eggs have tough, rigid shells. Okay, then if we talk about the body temperature, yes, they are poikilothermic. That means they are cold-blooded, but they can regulate their temperature to some extent. And how do they do this? They do this by basking in the sun until their bodies warm up. And when reptiles warm up, they can move about rapidly in pursuit of insects and other prey. When they are warmed up, then they go and hunt for their prey. What does this class include? It includes lizards, snakes, turtles, tortoise, crocodiles, and many more. Then we have the process of reproduction. The male and the female reptiles, they mate and sperms are passed into the female's body. The eggs are therefore fertilized internally before being laid. So fertilization in reptiles is internal. Okay, and here in the picture you can see a reptile which is a lizard. Let's move on to the very cute class of vertebrata that are birds. I personally love birds a lot. They're also called aves. Now, who is going to tell me about birds by looking at this picture? Many things are already clear. Emma Zen, okay? Yes, Emma.
Miss, birds don't have scales, they have feathers.
Okay, good.
Miss, they also have wings, so not all birds have wings, but most of them have wings, so they can fly.
Hmm.
And Miss, birds don't have teeth; they have beaks. Like, yes, Miss, they have beaks, and Miss, they lay eggs.
Okay, excellent. Very good. Now, as Ahmed said, birds,
Ma'am, but my language is that.
first of all, we need to know that birds का body temperature कैसा है. So they are not poikilothermic, they are not cold-blooded, instead they are warm-blooded and we call them as homeothermic. So birds are homeothermic vertebrates. They have feathers on their body and they have a beak as well. They have 4 limbs, but the 4 limbs are modified to form wings. वैसे उनके 4 limbs हैं, 4, FOUR 4. But the 4 limbs, FORE 4 limbs, शुरू वाले जो limbs हैं, they are modified to form wings of the birds. Then if we talk about fertilization in birds, it's internal, and the female bird lays hard-shelled eggs in a nest, and she incubates the eggs in the nest only. Then comes the last class, and that is mammals. जो कि हम लोग हैं mammals. So who is going to tell us about mammals? Let me just ask. Amna Nawaz, would you tell us something about mammals? Yes.
Miss, mammals are
Any characteristic feature? We are mammals, so keeping in mind yourself, what are mammals?
they have fur or hair. Some of them, not all.
Okay.
And
And do they lay eggs? Okay, let's hear it from Abdullah Amir. Yes, Abdullah Bita.
Ma'am, they are warm-blooded.
Okay, very good.
They have a complex brain and also
Okay.
a memory gland.
All right.
Yep, that's all.
That's all. Okay. Let's hear it from Ahmed Raza. Yes, Ahmed.
Ma'am, they are homeothermic. They have fur or hair on their body. They give birth to the new ones and they feed the new ones from the mammary glands. They have limbs, 4 limbs,
Good.
and complex brain.
All right. Good. So if we talk about mammals, first of all, they are homeothermic or warm-blooded vertebrates with 4 limbs. 4 limbs means 2 hands, 2 legs. Now, how do mammals differ from birds? Birds have feathers and mammals have hair or fur on their body. Unlike the other vertebrates, they have a diaphragm which plays a part in breathing. So one of the main characteristic features of mammals is possessing a diaphragm. They also have mammary glands and they suckle their young on milk. We humans are mammals. Monkeys, they are also mammals. All mammals, they give birth to fully formed young and they do not lay eggs, except for one mammal, that is which mammal lays eggs? Mahat, can you recall? The platypus is the mammal which lays eggs. Okay, how the eggs are fertilized? The eggs are fertilized internally and they undergo a period of development in the uterus of a female's body. The milk is made in the mammary glands and it contains all the nutrients that the offspring needs for the first few weeks or for the first few months, depending on the species. And as the youngsters, they get older, they start to feed on the same food as the parents are feeding on. These are the characteristic features of mammals. If we just compare all the characteristic features in a chart, just like we had done for arthropods, you can see a chart on your screen showing all the basic characteristic features of the 5 classes of vertebrates. Fish, amphibia, reptiles, birds, and mammals. Their examples, their body structure, how are they moving, the mode of reproduction, the sense organs, and obviously the other details which are including the body temperature. Yes, Abdullah Amir, the egg-laying mammal was the platypus.